Jimin left the stage mid-show. Jungkook's reaction says everything. A concert shatters when Jimin leaves mid-show. Jungkook's silent reaction ignites secrets, fear, and a truth the lights can't hide. The first crack comes not from the speakers, but from Jimin's breath, caught sharp and wrong in Jungkook's ear just as the beat drops. Then the lights flare white, and Jimin is already turning away. For half a second, the stadium roars as if nothing has happened, as if 80,000 voices can stitch reality back together. But Jungkook feels the space beside him go cold. The stage smells like hot metal and ozone, sweat and smoke, and the bass is pounding so hard it rattles his ribs. Yet all he can hear is the hollow thud of his own pulse when Jimin steps past the edge of the light and disappears. Jungkook doesn't chase him, not yet. His feet lock in place, muscle memory carrying him through the next 8 counts, through the turn, through the line they've practiced 1,000 times. Cameras swing toward him, searching for the crack, the mistake, the proof that something is wrong. He keeps his face still. He always does. That's his habit. Hold the line, don't let the storm spill. But his eyes betray him. They flick once to the dark wing where Jimin vanished, and the audience feels it like a collective intake of breath. The song ends without him. Applause crashes like surf against the barricades, too loud, too bright. Jungkook bows with the others, his palms damp, his smile set like porcelain. When he straightens, the monitors by the stage door show the hallway feed. A blur of black hair, a flash of silver earring, then nothing. The feed goes blank. Backstage is chaos dressed as order. Managers move with clipped efficiency, staff murmuring into headsets, dancers shedding sweat and adrenaline. The air is cooler here, tinged with disinfectant and the faint sweetness of flowers wilting under stage heat. Jungkook peels off his in-ear, the sudden quiet ringing. He scans faces, searching for the one person who should be arguing, laughing, apologizing, explaining. "Where is he?" Jungkook asks, and hates how flat his voice sounds. No one answers him directly. Someone says hydration, someone else says medical, and a third whispers privacy. Jungkook nods because nodding is easier than pushing, and pushing is a door he's learned not to slam unless he has to. He slips past a rack of costumes, fingers brushing familiar fabric, the one Jimin favors because it grounds him. A grounding ritual. Jungkook remembers the way Jimin always presses his thumb into the seam before stepping out, as if anchoring himself to the present. The corridor outside the dressing rooms hums softly. Jungkook follows the hum to the quiet room, the one they built after last year's tour scare, all neutral tones and low light. The door is ajar. Inside, Jimin sits on the floor with his back against the wall, knees pulled tight to his chest, hair damp with sweat. A medic kneels nearby, speaking gently. Jimin's gaze is unfocused, fixed on nothing. Jungkook stops in the doorway. He knows this posture. He knows the way Jimin's shoulders rise just a fraction too high, the way his hands curl inward as if protecting something fragile. He remembers a rehearsal months ago when Jimin froze under the lights, breath hitching, eyes glassy. Afterward, Jimin laughed it off, said it was nothing, said he'd slept badly. Jungkook had believed him because believing was easier than insisting on truth. Now seeing him like this, the guilt settles heavy. "I'm fine," Jimin says before anyone asks, the words automatic, too fast. His voice is steady, which is the problem. He pushes himself to his feet, swaying. Jungkook steps forward without thinking, hands out. Jimin flinches at the movement, then forces a smile. "I said I'm fine," Jimin repeats softer. "I just needed air." The medic glances at Jungkook, says something about vitals, about panic response, about triggers. The word lands between them like a dropped glass. Trigger. Jungkook's mind runs backward, cataloging. The lighting change in the bridge, the echo effect that distorts time, the lyric that cuts too close. Jimin has always been precise, controlled, but beneath it there's a fault line. Jungkook knows pieces of the story, fragments shared at 3 a.m. over cold ramen, hints of a pressure cooker childhood, of perfection demanded until the edges cut. He doesn't know everything. He never pushed for everything. The medic leaves them alone. The door closes with a soft click that sounds louder than it should. Silence stretches. In it, Jungkook notices the small things. The scuff on Jimin's sneaker, the tremor in his fingers as he reaches for water, the way his eyes avoid the mirror. I messed up, Jimin says finally, not looking at him. You didn't, Jungkook answers, immediate. You took care of yourself. Jimin laughs, a brittle sound. That's a generous way to put it. Jungkook leans against the opposite wall, close enough to feel Jimin's warmth but far enough not to crowd him. He keeps his hands visible, palms open. Another habit. Tell me what happened. Jimin closes his eyes. When he opens them, there's anger there, sharp and bright, aimed inward. I heard it again, he says. That noise, the way the crowd goes quiet right before the chorus, like the air gets sucked out. It felt like I couldn't breathe. Like if I stayed, I'd break. Jungkook swallows. He remembers the training rooms, the way silence was used as punishment, the way expectation can be louder than screaming. You left because you knew you needed to. I left because I was afraid, Jimin snaps, then softens. And because I didn't want you to see me like that. Jungkook's chest tightens. I saw you. Not the worst of it, Jimin's mouth twists. You didn't see the part where I thought I was going to disappear. Jungkook pushes off the wall, closing the distance. He crouches in front of Jimin, meeting his gaze. The room hums. Outside, the show continues without them, a machine that doesn't stop for anyone. You don't disappear, Jungkook says quietly. You're here. Jimin studies his face as if looking for cracks for doubt. Finds none. His shoulders sag, the fight draining out of him. He presses his thumb into the seam of his jacket, grounding himself, and exhales. I hate that I can't control it, Jimin admits. Everyone thinks I'm fearless. Jungkook shakes his head. Fearless isn't the goal, honest is. Jimin snorts. You've gotten philosophical. I've had practice. Jungkook thinks of his own rituals, the way he counts steps, the way he keeps his voice even no matter what's burning underneath. He thinks of the cameras, of the headlines that will bloom tomorrow, hungry and sharp. We'll talk to the team. We'll adjust the set. We'll make it safer. For me, Jimin says. For us, Jungkook corrects. They sit in that for a moment. The door opens a crack. A manager asks if they're ready to rejoin for the encore. Jungkook looks at Jimin. The decision is his. Jimin stands, rolling his shoulders, testing his breath. Not tonight, he says. There's no apology in his voice this time, only resolve. Jungkook nods. He steps back onto the stage alone for the encore, the lights warm and forgiving. The crowd cheers, confused but loyal. Jungkook sings with a steadiness that surprises even him, not because he's hiding the truth, but because he's holding it gently. When the last note fades, he bows deeply, hand pressed to his heart, eyes lifting to the dark wing. Back in the quiet room, Jimin watches the feed. When Jungkook returns, sweat-soaked and smiling, Jimin stands and does something rare. He pulls Jungkook into a hug without preamble, without fear. Thank you, he says into Jungkook's shoulder. For what? For staying, Jimin answers. Jungkook holds him a second longer, then pulls back, hands firm on Jimin's arms. We leave together, he says. They do. The city doesn't sleep after a broken show. It mutters. Headlines flicker on phones, speculation coils through comment sections, and the hotel lobby hums with whispers that stick to Jungkook's skin like smoke as he steps inside beside Jimin. They don't touch at first. The elevator doors close with a soft thud, sealing them in a mirrored box that reflects their faces back at them from every angle. Jungkook's jaw is tight. Jimin's fingers worry the hem of his sleeve, thumb pressing into the seam again and again, grounding, grounding, grounding. Say it, Jungkook says, voice low. Whatever you're holding back, say it now. Jimin laughs under his breath, sharp and humorless. You always do that. You give me permission like it makes it easier. Does it? Jungkook asks. The elevator climbs. Each floor lights up and disappears. No, Jimin says, but I need it anyway. The doors open. They walk the corridor in silence, carpet swallowing their footsteps. When the door to the suite closes behind them, the quiet rushes in, thick and expectant. Jimin drops onto the couch, elbows on knees, head in his hands. Jungkook stands, still keyed up, adrenaline refusing to settle. You looked angry out there, Jimin says without lifting his head. When I left. I was terrified, Jungkook snaps. The word lands harder than he expects. He exhales, scrubs a hand through his hair. I was angry at myself for not seeing it coming. Jimin looks up then, eyes bright. You can't see everything. I didn't even see it coming. That's not true, Jungkook says. You've been off for weeks. You stopped sleeping. You started rehearsing alone. Jimin straightens, defensive. So now it's my fault. No, Jungkook says quickly. I'm saying I should have pushed harder. I should have asked why. And what would I have said? Jimin challenges. That every time the lights go out, I hear them counting. That I can feel the old rooms closing in. That sometimes the applause sounds like judgment. Jungkook's throat tightens. I would have listened. Jimin stands, restless, packing. Listening isn't the same as understanding. Try me, Jungkook says. Jimin stops. For a long moment, he just stares. Then the words spill, hot and messy. He talks about the trainee days, about the silence that followed mistakes, about how perfection became oxygen. He talks about the night he learned how to smile through panic, about how it earned praise, about how the habit stuck. He talks about fear wearing a friendly face. Jungkook listens, every muscle still, the way he does when something precious is being handed to him. When Jimin finishes, breath shallow, Jungkook speaks softly. You're not weak for leaving. You were brave enough to stop. Jimin shakes his head. They'll call it unprofessional. They can, Jungkook says. They'll be wrong. Jimin's laugh breaks, tears finally spilling. You say that like it won't cost us. It might, Jungkook admits, but it won't cost you. The room buzzes with a phone vibrating on the table. Jungkook ignores it. Jimin doesn't. He grabs it, reads, and his face hardens. They want a statement, Jimin says. They want me to apologize. Jungkook steps closer. Do you want to? Jimin hesitates. I want to tell the truth. Then tell it, Jungkook says. Jimin swallows, even if it scares people. Especially then. The next hours are a blur of drafts and debates. The manager's voice crackles through the speaker, measured and tense. Words like brand and liability are thrown around like shields. Jimin's shoulders curl inward until Jungkook reaches out, resting a hand between them, steady. No, Jimin says into the phone, voice shaking but firm. I won't say I'm sorry for taking care of myself. Silence, then a sigh, then compromise attempts. Jungkook watches Jimin find a spine he didn't know he had, watches him choose honesty over polish. It's messy, it's loud, it's real. When the call ends, Jimin slumps against the wall, sliding down until he's sitting on the floor again. Jungkook sits beside him, shoulder to shoulder. I don't know who I am without the mask, Jimin whispers. You're learning, Jungkook says. I'll learn with you. Jimin leans his head against Jungkook's shoulder. The city glows through the window, indifferent and bright. Jungkook feels the weight of tomorrow pressing in, the interviews, the opinions, the noise. He also feels something else, steadier. Stay with me tonight, Jimin says. It's not a request dressed as bravado, it's bare. Jungkook doesn't hesitate. Always. They don't sleep much. They talk until dawn, voices hoarse, laughter cutting through tears like light through cracks. By morning, the statement is out, raw, unapologetic. The reaction is immediate and divided, praise and backlash colliding in real time. Jungkook watches Jimin read it all, jaw set, breathing measured. When Jimin finally looks up, there's fear there but also relief. I left the stage, Jimin says, and the world didn't end. Jungkook smiles, small and real. No, he says, it changed. Morning doesn't arrive gently. It crashes. Jungkook wakes to the vibration of his phone skittering across the nightstand like something alive. The room smells faintly of coffee from the hallway and the lingering citrus of the hotel cleaner. But underneath it all is the metallic tang of nerves. Jimin is already awake, sitting cross-legged on the couch, phone in hand, eyes moving too fast. It's bad, Jimin says without looking up. How bad? Jungkook asks, voice still rough. Jimin turns the screen toward him. Headlines bleed into each other, words sharpened into weapons. Unprofessional, Divisive, hero, liability. A poll asks whether honesty has gone too far. A clip of Jungkook's face from the stage, his eyes searching the dark, loops endlessly with captions that read too much into a single glance. Jungkook exhales. They're dissecting everything. They always do, Jimin says. He rubs his thumb into the seam of his sleeve until the skin pales. But this time it feels different, like I crossed a line I can't uncross. Jungkook sits beside him. You didn't cross it alone. The phone buzzes again. A message from management, curt and urgent, asking them to come down immediately. Jimin's shoulders tense. They're going to make me walk it back, he says. They'll say the words are mine, but the tone won't be. Jungkook's jaw tightens. We'll hear them out. The conference room is glass and chrome, too bright for the hour. Coffee cups sweat on the table. Faces are polite, smiles thin. The air hums with practiced concern. A senior executive clears his throat. Jimin, your statement resonated, but it's polarizing. Jimin nods. Honesty usually is. A murmur ripples. Someone smiles as if that's charming. We need to think long-term, the executive continues. Your fans look to you for stability. I am stable, Jimin says, heat rising. I'm also human. Another voice cuts in, sharper. Leaving the stage mid-show undermines trust. Jungkook leans forward. Trust isn't built on pretending nothing's wrong. Eyes flick to him, surprise, irritation. This is bigger than either of you, the executive says. We're asking for a clarification, an apology for the disruption, not the feeling. Jimin laughs, short and incredulous. You want me to apologize for breathing? No, the executive says smoothly. For the impact. Jimin stands. The chair legs scrape, loud. The impact of me not collapsing in front of 80,000 people. Silence. Jungkook rises too. If you want stability, he says evenly, you invest in safety, not silence. The executive's smile tightens. Are you threatening us? Jungkook meets his gaze. I'm setting a boundary. The room feels smaller. Jimin's pulse thuds in his ears. He thinks of the counting, the lights, the old rooms. He thinks of the crowd's breath catching when he left, and of the strange relief that followed. I'll clarify one thing, Jimin says. I won't apologize for leaving. I will explain why it mattered. There's resistance, negotiation, voices overlapping. Time stretches. Finally, a compromise forms, not perfect, but not hollow. Jimin will speak again, live in his own words. No script. Jungkook will stand with him. Outside, the hallway buzzes with staff and security. Jimin's hands shake. Jungkook notices, threads his fingers through Jimin, grounding him without ceremony. Look at me, Jungkook murmurs. Jimin does. You don't owe them a performance. Jimin nods, breathing evening out. The press room is a sea of lenses and murmurs. Lights bloom. The heat is familiar, threatening. Jungkook feels Jimin tense beside him, then straighten. Jimin steps to the mic. I left the stage because my body told me to, he says, voice steady. I left because staying would have taught me the wrong lesson, that my worth depends on enduring harm. Questions fly, sharp ones, accusations dressed as curiosity. Are you encouraging others to walk out? Did you put the group at risk? Is this a publicity move? Jimin answers without flinching. I'm encouraging people to listen to themselves. No one is more important than health. If this were a move, it would be the worst one. Laughter ripples, uneasy. Jungkook watches the room tilt, sees respect spark in unexpected places. A reporter leans forward. Jungkook, your reaction on stage, what did it mean? Jungkook doesn't look away from Jimin. It meant I was proud. The room stills. Afterward, backstage again, the adrenaline crashes. Jimin's knees wobble. Jungkook catches him, laughing with relief, the sound bursting free. That was, Jimin starts, then chokes up. That was terrifying. And you did it, Jungkook says. They find a quiet corner. Jimin presses his forehead to Jungkook's shoulder, breathing in sweat and fabric and familiarity. I don't want to go back to pretending, he whispers. You won't, Jungkook promises. The backlash doesn't vanish. Neither does the praise. But something shifts. Messages pour in from fans, from artists, from people who saw themselves in the crack Jimin allowed the world to see. Jimin reads them slowly, tears smudging the screen. I thought being strong meant never leaving, he says. Sometimes it means knowing when to, Jungkook replies. That night they walk out into the city without disguises, just hoodies and tired smiles. The air is cool. Neon reflects in puddles. A few people recognize them, nodding with quiet respect, no phones raised. Jimin exhales, a long, unguarded breath. I feel lighter. Jungkook grins. Told you. They keep walking, side by side, the noise fatting behind them. The world hasn't ended. It has widened. The tour doesn't pause for healing. It accelerates, hungry and unforgiving. The next venue rises from the asphalt like a steel cathedral, lights already testing the sky even though the sun hasn't fully set. Inside, cables snake across the floor, speakers hum, and the smell of dust warmed by electricity settles into Jungkook's lungs as if to remind him that the stage remembers everything. Jimin stands at center stage during sound check, eyes closed, hands loose at his sides. Jungkook watches from a few steps back, counting Jimin's breaths with him without saying a word. It become their quiet language. In for 4, hold, out for 6. When Jimin opens his eyes, there's a flicker of gratitude and fear. Do you want to change the bridge? Jungkook asks softly. Jimin hesitates. If I do, they'll say I'm rewriting history. And if you do? They'll say I proved their point. Jimin exhales, a humorless smile tugging at his mouth. Funny how silence and honesty both get punished. A staff member approaches, voice hushed but urgent. We've got a problem. The problem is a leak. A rehearsal clip from months ago surfaces online. Jimin stopping mid-song, hands shaking, Jungkook stepping in front of him, blocking the cameras. The narrative twists fast. People argue whether Jungkook enabled weakness or protected a friend. The comments burn. Jimin watches the clip on a tablet, face draining of color. I asked them to delete that, he says. I trusted. Jungkook's jaw hardens. We'll deal with it. How? Jimin snaps, panic sharpening his tone. By pretending it never happened, by smiling through another explanation. Jungkook meets his gaze. By telling the truth again. Jimin laughs, brittle. You really think truth is armor? No, Jungkook says. I think it's a mirror, and some people hate what they see. The hours before the show stretch taut. Makeup brushes whisper over skin. Wardrobe adjusts seams. The crowd outside swells, a living thing pressing closer. Jimin's chest tightens, the old noise creeps in, counting and judging. He grips the edge of the table until his knuckles pale. I can't do this if they expect me to be an example, Jimin says suddenly. I don't want to be a symbol, I just want to sing. Jungkook crouches in front of him, eyes steady. Then sing, not for them, for you. And if I leave again? Jimin asks, voice small. Then we leave together, Jungkook replies without hesitation. The opening notes roll out like thunder. Lights bloom, the crowd erupts. Jimin steps into the glow, heart hammering, and for a moment the world narrows to the sound of his own breath. He sings. The first verse lands clean. The second builds. When the bridge approaches, his pulse spikes. Jimin changes it. The melody softens, the lighting dims, the space opens. The audience stills, surprised. Jimin sings about listening to the body, about choosing to stay alive over staying perfect. His voice trembles, not with fear, but with release. Halfway through, a chant starts. His name, steady, supportive, it grows until it fills the hall. Jimin's eyes flood. He finishes the song. Backstage afterward, adrenaline crashes into tears. Jimin laughs and sobs at once, wiping his face with the back of his hand. They didn't turn on me, he says, stunned. Jungkook smiles, wide and unguarded. They heard you. The fallout arrives anyway. A sponsor pulls back, citing brand alignment. An executive calls, furious. The pressure mounts like a storm. This isn't sustainable, the executive snaps over the speaker. You're encouraging unpredictability. Jimin takes the phone, hands steady. I'm encouraging honesty. That honesty costs money. Jimin closes his eyes, then opens them. Then it costs money. The line goes dead. Later, alone on the balcony, the city a glittering sprawl below, Jimin leans against the railing. The night air is cool, grounding. Jungkook joins him, offering a bottle of water. I'm scared, Jimin admits. But it's different now. It's not the fear of being seen. It's the fear of losing what we've built. Jungkook nods. I have that fear too. Jimin studies him. Why are you so calm? Jungkook smiles faintly. I'm not. I just decided what matters more. Jimin's throat tightens. He steps closer, resting his head against Jungkook's shoulder. The city hums, alive and indifferent. For the first time in a long while, the silence doesn't threaten. They don't fix everything. They don't need to. What they have is sturdier than approval, louder than backlash. When Jimin leaves the stage now, it's not to escape, it's to choose himself. And Jungkook's reaction still says everything. He follows, not because he has to, but because he wants to. The next city greets them with rain that needles the pavement and smears the neon into long, bleeding streaks. Inside the venue, the air feels heavier, like the building itself is holding its breath. Jungkook notices it immediately. Jimin does too. They exchange a look that says this place remembers ghosts. Backstage, a familiar tension coils tighter than before. Staff whisper more carefully now, as if words might detonate. A new security detail hovers. Someone has leaked internal emails overnight, snippets taken out of context, sentences sharpened into accusations. One headline blares that the group is divided. Another claims Jungkook is manipulating the narrative. A third suggests Jimin has become dangerous. Jimin stares at his phone until the letters blur. Dangerous, he repeats softly, for telling the truth. Jungkook takes the phone from his hand and sets it face down. They're afraid of what they can't package. Jimin's laugh is bitter. Or maybe they're right. Maybe I'm a liability now. Jungkook's voice cuts through, low and firm. Don't say that. It's what they're thinking, Jimin snaps, frustration flaring. You didn't hear the call this morning. They asked if I could sit out the next leg. Sit out, like I'm a broken prop. Jungkook's chest tightens. They didn't tell me. They wanted to see if I'd agree first, Jimin says. His hands shake. I almost did. The words hit harder than any headline. You almost left, Jungkook asks, unable to keep the edge from his voice. I almost protected you, Jimin fires back. From this mess, from me. Jungkook steps closer, the space between them crackling. You don't get to decide that for me. Silence stretches, thick and sharp. Jimin looks away, jaw clenched, fighting the instinct to retreat. I'm tired, Jimin says quietly. Tired of being brave, tired of being watched, tired of needing permission to breathe. Jungkook exhales slowly, anger cooling into something steadier. Then stop asking for it. Jimin looks up. What if they pull the plug? Then we find another outlet, Jungkook replies. We don't disappear. A knock interrupts them. A manager steps in, face pale. We have an issue, protesters out front, some supportive, some not. Jimin's stomach drops. About me. About everything, the manager says. Security, handling it, but emotions are high. Jimin closes his eyes. The old noise surges, counting, judgment, the press of expectation. He presses his thumb into the seam, harder than usual. Jungkook places a hand over it, stilling the motion. Look at me, he murmurs. Jimin does. Jungkook's gaze is unwavering. You're not alone, he says, no matter what they're shouting. Outside, the chants bleed through the walls, muffled but unmistakable. Love and anger collide, voices rising and falling like waves. Jimin swallows. I don't know if I can go out there tonight, he admits. Jungkook nods. Then we won't. Jimin's eyes widen. They'll lose it. Let them, Jungkook says. We're not sacrificing you to keep the schedule. The decision ripples fast. Meetings erupt. Phones ring, voices sharpen. The pressure is immediate and relentless. You're breaching contract, someone argues. You're escalating the situation, another warns. This will follow you, a third threatens. Jimin listens, heart pounding, and something unexpected happens. The fear doesn't take over. It sits beside him, manageable. I'm not walking away from the stage, Jimin says clearly. I'm choosing how I stand on it. After an hour of chaos, a compromise forms again, this time thinner, riskier. A stripped-down set, fewer lights. No backing track during the bridge, Jimin's voice unshielded. When they step out, the rain has stopped. The crowd is loud, restless, divided. Jimin's hands tremble as he grips the mic. He scans the sea of faces, searching for judgment, for mercy, for anything. He sings. The rawness is undeniable. Every breath is audible. Every crack tells the truth. When the bridge comes, the arena goes quiet, not the suffocating silence of before, but a listening one. Jimin's voice wavers, then steadies. He doesn't look away this time. Halfway through the song, a shout cuts through, angry, sharp. Security moves. Jimin flinches. Jungkook steps closer, presence solid at his side, singing harmony that wraps around Jimin's voice like a shield. They finish together. Backstage, the adrenaline shakes Jimin to the bone. He paces, tears spilling unchecked. Did you hear that? He asks. They were yelling. I heard, Jungkook says, and I also heard the rest. Jimin sinks onto a bench, burying his face in his hands. What if this never gets easier? Jungkook sits beside him. Then we stop waiting for easy. A message pings on Jimin's phone. Not a headline, not a demand. A note from a trainee he mentored years ago, thanking him for speaking out, for showing that survival matters more than perfection. Jimin's breath catches. Maybe this is worth it, he whispers. Jungkook smiles, eyes soft. It already is. They leave the venue later than planned, slipping into the night while the city buzzes with debate. Nothing is resolved. The controversy still burns, but something fundamental has shifted. Jimin walks a little taller. Jungkook's hand stays within reach. And for the first time since the stage became a battlefield, the music feels like refuge again. The pressure finally snaps in the quietest place possible. It happens in the rehearsal room the next afternoon, walls padded, lights dimmed, a space designed to be safe. Jungkook is halfway through a harmony when Jimin suddenly stops singing. The sound dies mid-note, hanging awkwardly in the air. Don't, Jimin says. Jungkook turns. Don't what? Don't look at me like that, Jimin snaps, voice raw. Like you're waiting for me to fall apart. Jungkook stiffens. I'm not. You are, Jimin insists, packing now, agitation crackling off him. Everyone is. Every breath I take feels monitored. Every pause feels suspicious. Jungkook exhales slowly. That's not coming from me. Isn't it? Jimin whirls around. You keep asking if I'm okay. You keep hovering. You keep stepping in front of me like I'm about to break. Jungkook's temper flares, sharp and sudden. Because last time I didn't, you vanished into the dark. And I survived, Jimin fires back. But you're acting like I can't be trusted with my own limits. The words land heavy. Jungkook's voice drops. That's not fair. Jimin's eyes glisten. Neither is turning me into a glass figure everyone tiptoes around. Silence stretches, brittle and loud. Jungkook looks away, jaw clenched, hands curling into fists at his sides. You think this is easy for me, Jungkook says quietly. Watching you struggle and not knowing if helping means stepping in or stepping back. Jimin stops packing, then stop choosing for me. I'm not choosing, Jungkook says. I'm reacting. To fear. Jimin says, yours. That hits. Jungkook swallows. Yes, he admits. I'm afraid. I'm afraid I'll miss the moment you need me. I'm afraid I'll lose you to this before I even realize it's happening. Jimin's shoulders slump. The fight drains out of him, leaving exhaustion in its wake. I don't want to be something you're scared of. You're not, Jungkook says immediately. You're what I'm holding onto. They stand there, breathing in sync without meaning to, the tension easing but not disappearing. Jimin runs a hand through his hair, frustration giving way to something softer. I need you to trust me, Jimin says. Even when I'm shaky, especially then. Jungkook nods. And I need you to tell me when stepping back helps more than stepping in. Jimin meets his gaze. Deal. The truce is fragile but real. That night, the controversy explodes again, louder than before. A leaked audio clip circulates, someone from upper management questioning whether Jungkook's loyalty has gone too far. The implication is ugly and deliberate. Fans divide, arguments rage, narratives splinter. Jimin listens to the clip once, then hands the phone to Jungkook. They're trying to pit us against each other. Jungkook's lips press into a thin line. They underestimated how much I hate manipulation. The emergency meeting is brutal. Accusations fly thinly veiled as concerns. Loyalty is questioned. Professionalism is weaponized. You're blurring lines, an executive says to Jungkook. Your role isn't to protect one member at the expense of the group. Jungkook doesn't raise his voice. My role is to protect the people in it. Jimin watches, stunned, as Jungkook continues. If caring about my bandmate is a liability, Jungkook says, then maybe the structure is the problem. Gasps ripple through the room. This could cost you opportunities, the executive warns. Jungkook shrugs, then they weren't worth having. Jimin's chest tightens, emotion surging hot and fast. He steps forward before fear can stop him. I didn't ask him to stand with me, Jimin says. He chose to, and so did I. The room goes quiet. Later, back in the dorm, the adrenaline crashes hard. Jimin sits on the floor, back against the couch, staring at nothing. Jungkook lowers himself beside him. You didn't have to say that, Jungkook murmurs. Yes, I did, Jimin replies. I've spent too long letting other people define what strength looks like. Jungkook glances at him. And what does it look like now? Jimin thinks for a moment. Messy, honest, shared. Jungkook smiles faintly. I like that version. Jimin leans his head against Jungkook's shoulder, tired but steady. I don't know how this ends, he says. Jungkook rests his cheek lightly against Jimin's hair. I know how it continues. How? Together, Jungkook says. Not as a symbol, not as a controversy, just as us. The noise outside doesn't fade. The opinions don't soften. But inside the quiet room, something settles into place. Not certainty, not peace, but trust that can survive the noise. And for the first time since Jimin left the stage, the future doesn't feel like a threat. It feels like a choice. The city hums beyond the windows, indifferent and vast, neon bleeding into the night like liquid fire. Inside, the room is quiet except for their breathing, steadying, grounding. Jimin leans fully against Jungkook, shoulders heavy but no longer trembling, a weight finally shared. Jungkook rests his hand over Jimin, fingers interlacing naturally, the simple contact carrying more assurance than any headline, any crowd, any contract could. Outside, the world continues its relentless pace, judgment, praise, and chaos. But inside, time slows. They don't need applause. They don't need approval. All that matters is this: the honesty between them, the trust that survived fear, and the knowledge that whatever comes next, they face it side by side. Jimin exhales, a long, unguarded breath, and murmurs, I'm ready. Jungkook smiles, quiet and steady. Me too. The lights dim, the city glows, and together they step forward, not as symbols, not as performers, but as themselves. The storm outside can rage, but inside they have found their calm. The music of their lives continues, unbroken, and for the first time, completely theirs. And in that moment, everything feels exactly right.